AM, and you are listening to.
Right, we're going to chat to Professor Sipho Seepe. In fact, I will just double check if he's there. Trying to connect with him, and let's see if I can get the go ahead to do just that. Okay, in fact, he's on the line. Professor Sipho Seepe with us, who's a political analyst. Of course, I've chatted him on many occasions, and here's another reason to talk to him once again. Prof. Seepe, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Right, so what's your broad strokes in terms of, maybe three key points that emerged from that DA Federal Congress that we should be talking about today?
Well, the first one was that the outcome was predictable. There was no political contest. First, when you talk about contest, you talk about people who are equally primed and have the necessarily or equivalent or comparable qualities to be able to say this is a real contest and it could go either way. And when we look at the Haven and the Palace, there was definitely no contest on the political front. One has to do with the fact that Haven is an incumbent, and there is an advantage of being an incumbent, especially when your incumbency is at the national level. And that gives you a national profile. And what it means that members of the DA have had more opportunities to be able to see you speak and advance the positions of the party. So you become the face of the party. And the party, unfortunately, is somebody whose position was that of an executive mayor in Johannesburg. And her profile has been largely at the local and provincial levels. When you go outside the province of Gauteng, you hear less about her. So when people elect, they elect people that they had seen, that they can relate to easily. So from that perspective, Steenhuisen had already consolidated his position. So there was no position that of saying Popularity could win. And that's why the Steenhuisen was able to get that massive support of about 80%.
Yeah, okay, let's stay with that for the moment. We'll pick up on point 2 and 3 in just a second. It's probably easier to do it this way. I think officially they didn't announce any result in terms of the difference, but I understand certainly from the national spokesperson of the DA, also the elected Deputy Federal Chairperson Solly Malatsi on SABC News yesterday, saying in fact it was a resounding victory, and he said that the support was greater than 83%. So I think we're all putting it at 83 or 85%, which it's absolutely. I mean, there's no ANC leader who gets that sort of support anyway, right? Just a thought, just on Impo Malatsi. Firstly, would we have any idea if the 15% or so that she received, how much of that came from Joburg or Gauteng? Are we able to find out?
No, we will not be able to find out, because there's also the notion of affinity, where people vote for people who look like them. And so you may have people from outside Gauteng who are black and who are female, who may say, well, we'll take a chance with her. So the problem is that the race question does feature in how people are seen. And there's also the issue of the reality of South African politics. I mean, we know that if the day you are a leader and you have to try to secure financial support, sometimes, and oftentimes, your color matters. We've had, and some of us have had experience, where we've gone to the bank to try to get the loans for our studies, even at the level of a PhD. And then the bank tells you that they can't give you. And then you have your student who is white going to the same bank, asking for a loan, and they're given. This is the reality of South African politics. So it is possible that not all the 15% or more than that has actually come from Johannesburg. People,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
and that happen oftentimes.
All right, point taken. I'm going to then turn it around to John Steenhuisen. It does suggest, therefore, that whether he's got the support of 83% or 85%, that he is safe and secure in his position, and compared to most other parties, excepting perhaps Julius Malema, meaning that there's not a single ANC leader who'd be safe in the hot seat as John Steenhuisen is now, isn't it?
No, definitely, you're quite correct there. It's as I say, politics of consolidation. But you also have the Steenhuisen had also an advantage of having gone through the ranks politically. He used to be at the municipality at the Tegweni. Then he moved to the provincial level. Then he moved to the national level. So when people look at that, they say, well, this is a person who we can trust. If you are at the local level as a member of the DA, he says it is he has an understanding of that. If you're at the provincial level, you say he may have that understanding. So from that level of experience, it's much more deeper than what you would say about Mpopalate. I mean, she running a Joburg metro is very difficult, and she was able to say she learned a lot there. But it is also what people call the optics that also matters.
Okay, then let's say this then, and then we move on to other things. So, you speak about recognition, which in South African terms could well be color. Right now, I know that not every member of the DA Congress, Party Congress, historically are white. I mean, there's a sizable number of black people in that Congress, although not enough at leadership. I think that's a given, right? Does that not suggest the opposite? The fact that Steenhuisen got that much support, that in fact, in their own way, at least at Congress level, if not in the top brass, right? There's a sense that they're seeing less color, and if that's the case, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to credit them. I mean, the truth is, the DA is one of the most diverse party. I mean, you just have to look at the faces, the people who are attending. And I watched with, at that time, surprise, if not shock. The last time when Bushman was in Soweto, the sea of black faces in bloom was remarkable to watch. And I come from, as a Sowetan, there was a time when you could not even think of black people becoming members of the DA. So the DA has made inroads in terms of followership within the black community. It has not made sufficient inroads, or black people have not made inroads in terms of leadership, but their followership. And you contrast that with the ANC, NEC, where it was largely black, and they had to manufacture or manipulate to say, no, we need to co-opt a few non-African or non-black faces so that we can keep this idea. But what we saw was also the racial configuration within the NEC of the ANC for the first time that was largely African.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to other things. John Steenhuisen said, if we look at the purpose, the why of the DA, he said, and I'm quoting him, we take this shot to defeat the ANC and keep the EFF out. So defeat the ANC, keep the EFF out. And then he also said that the threat facing the country was the prospect of an alliance between the ANC and the EFF. Given the fact that the ANC now officially co-governs with the EFF in parts of Gauteng, we need to start taking the threat of these parties ganging up to destroy our country in 2024 very seriously. And then, as you also know, he then referred to the EFF as the DA's public enemy number one, right? What do you make of those statements in terms of where then the DA would position itself going into 2024?
Well, the DA has been very clear when it comes to the EFF. And the Helen Zille was able to put it up front to say that they don't find themselves having any commonality in terms of the ideas and the principles and the agenda. The notion that they support the market economy, they don't think the EHF does. They hold the view that within the EFF, democracy does not seem to prevail. You have a strong man, and the strong man dictate, and they have not been impressed with that. They also do not agree to some of the tactics of the EFF, and so they, as you are saying, ideologically were so fundamentally different, and our brand of politics is very different, and therefore we've drawn the line that this is a policy position. When it comes to the ANC, they found it difficult. Their focus is on weakening the ANC. And you can only weaken a party like the ANC by trying to divide it. So they have come up to say, we are aware that there are factions within the ANC, and there are factions that you can work with. And they see Ramaphosa as representing that faction. So this is why Steenhuisen had said in the past that he's willing to work with Ramaphosa, but not the other people. So effectively, it is the ANC has, of course, made itself easy to divide because it considers itself to be a broad church. Effectively, saying we hold different positions as a party. So the DA says, let's concentrate on those who may be more aligned to our thinking within the ANC, not the communists in the ANC, not the socialists in the ANC, not the Africanists in the ANC, but those who seem to be aligned to a capitalist mode of production, those who are liberal in their outlook, those who are constitutionalists. So that is the position of the ANC. Let's divide the ANC. It's one of those things you call divide and conquer.
Yeah. All right. But so with that in mind, I mean, let's look at it practically. They're already saying they will not do any deal with the EFF in terms of the coalition. And there's a great sense that in South Africa 2024, the ANC will not get the 50%. So we have to talk coalition politics here, right? So they won't deal with the EFF. They also want to get the ANC out of power, right? And then you say that they will deal with the parts of the ANC that they can work with. But in reality, how are they able to do that when the stated aim is not to work with the EFF? That's easy to understand, but also effectively to wrestle control of power from the ANC. I mean, can you actually see? I can't see the DA then getting into a coalition and a power coalition if they don't align with the ANC somewhere along the line, because there's just not enough parties that will make it up.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is to nudge the ANC to move in a particular direction. The ANC at the moment appears to be a party that has abandoned all forms of so-called revolution and all that. They are more obsessed about being in power. And the ANC does see the EFF as a threat. And the EFF has also not even bothered with the DA. It sees the ANC as the enemy, number one. They want to bring the ANC down. So there's a convergence of thought between the DA and the EFF on bringing the ANC down. But where you will find it difficult, it would be, this is why they said, no, we are going to work with certain sections. But that will not be an easy thing. What you do then is that you will have to find what you call the common ground, or the non-negotiables, and say, on this, we talk about this. All other issues, these are what you call tactical maneuvers. But there's a clear position. I mean, what the DA says that we cannot preempt the need in politics to engage in tactical maneuvers where you may find that you may have to work with people you may not like. For instance, they are not friends to the Action SA, but they can work with Action SA. That's a reality that they say, let's allow tactical maneuvers. But we should also look at what Mashaba did in Gauteng. despite carrying the ticket of the DA, he was able to create stability by talking to the EFF that what are the things that we can agree on. And he says, let's deal with issues like electricity, potholes, and all that. Those are not ideological issues. Issues of we can deal with it. This is why also the DA was able to win mid-vast, despite the fact that you have a large contingent of black people there. They continue to vote for the DA precisely because they were saying, our issues here are not ideological. This is whether you're a communist, whether you're a socialist, whether you want to have the water that is running, you want to have electricity, you want to have. So the issue of competency of the people became the deciding factor. So I do think South Africa, we are at that space where political parties should be able to agree on some things, like the schools that are functioning, like roads that are functioning, like cities that are clean. I mean, these are things that can be agreed upon. And the EFF was more concerned in the Gauteng about being in the budget committee to say, how do we spend the money? And this money must be spent more largely towards the poor. And that was a position that Mashaba was not opposed to.
So let's look ahead to 2024, because I mean I'm fascinated with that. On the one hand, the DA wants to get rid of the ANC, but they also will work with some parts of the ANC. They will somehow work with Action SA, who are clear, like the DA said, they will not work with the EFF. Mashaba has said he will not work with the ANC, and we know that, right? They've already lost one party member as a result of that, right? So here's the big question going forward, right? There's a sense, even Impo Palazzi made the point that the ANC is set for an imminent collapse. I mean, that's what she's saying, right? So there's a clear sense from many people that you will never get a better chance to wrestle control from the ANC in 2024 as will happen now, right? So finally, on that point, has the DA got has it got the model and the tools to convince enough people to get to 50+1 in 2024 without dealing with the EFF and without dealing with the ANC, which, if I take it at its weakest level, the ANC probably can't get lower than 40%, and the DA gets, say, even if the EFF gets 10% without growing, that's already 50%.
No, I don't think you're right now. There's not much that the DA can do to have that jump to where it can get to 51%. I think that's not within the realm of possibility. But what is possible is for them to push a possibility, or to push the politics of possibility, to simply say, we can judge us by where we have been. And this has been the message that Helen Zille and the DA have been pushing from the time of 20 beyond. They look at where we govern and ask. And when you look at the Auditor General's reports, you do see that the municipalities that are functioning are largely held by the DA. And the ones that are dysfunctional are within the ANC. So it says, Helen Zille was saying, really, what more can we do other than to show that this is what we can do for you? So it says South Africans, and correctly so, get the government that they deserve.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, it's outside of ideology. If the DA simply shows people how they practically can make people's lives a bit better on a day-to-day basis, then enough people may support them if they can do that. The big elephant in the room for the DA really is still the apparent lack of transformation. And I mean, the latest election confirms that once again, not just with the leader, but the entire top brass, right? It still doesn't come anywhere close to reflecting the majority of people in our country. How does the DA then be able to convince a detractor who says, okay, you're practical, you're very good with lawsuits, you're very good with putting pressure on the ANC, I like that, but ideologically, you're just so far behind seeing the reality of the country. And if you want to solve a problem, you also have to be seen to be reflecting the majority of people in our country.
Well, that is the major weakness of the DA. This is why I said earlier that the notion of 51% is not within the realm of possibility, because people do like to see people who look like them. But the DA, where they made the mistake, and it's a word that also Helen Zille used, is to parachute people into key positions as a way of addressing that. But as I said all the time, that the problem with doing that and is to understand, is fair to understand that when you bring Black people into those places, they also bring their Black experience. So you need to also not be rigid in how you see things, because you will find that based on historical and the real lived experience, there are views that may differ with the people who have never experienced that type of reality. To simply say my way or the highway. So there's need for flexibility. This is where the ANC has been very good at. The whole idea of a broad church, what it does, it gives an illusion that you are accommodated. But when you come in and you say this is the only way, I mean, for instance, my man was very clear on the issues of the continuation of apartheid realities and why they need that need to be addressed. And there are some members of the DA whose approach who are Black, when they look at affirmative action or BEE, they see differently from people like Helen Zille. So if you're going to be rigid, you are actually trying to say, I want to have a Black leadership that will almost erase everything that they know, and they supplant that with our own ideas, and that will not work. So there's a need for DA to have a certain degree of sophistication and sensitivity and understanding in how you deal with the different experiences and how perspectives are informed by.
I think you raise a good point that in fact the ANC is a classic example of a coalition party that's been governing for a long time. You know, with the ANC and COSATU and the SACP. In fact, it's a coalition of ideologies that somehow comes together for the better good of actually staying into power. Here's the last thing then. In the light of all the things you said, right? The DA's now national spokesperson, Solly Malatsi, in fact, he was on 702 this morning, and he was asked a question about the DA, and he said, and that is an important quote, okay, he said, race is not a proxy for disadvantage. Race is not a proxy for disadvantage. What do you understand by that?
No, I think he is wrong on real facts. What the DA's problem is that it looks at a few Black people who have managed to get out of the conditions of poverty. And then they will use those people, and people like Ramaphosa, people like all the rich Black people that people would name in this country. But those are individuals. The majority of South Africans are mired in conditions of poverty. You just have to look at the percentage of the Black middle class, and you look at the percentage of the Black underclass. And then you can say, if you see a Black person, that Black person is likely to be poor. That is not an unreasonable consideration. And if you're going to have a number of Black students coming into your space, you should also come to a realization that some of them may not be able to afford. They may come, and most of them may come from poor families. So the issue of disadvantage, race is still a proxy for disadvantage, and that's the quickest way you need to start addressing this issue. But if you are going to be addressing individuals, remember also what we made, the biggest mistake we made in post-apartheid South Africa is not to understand that the apartheid was a system. It affected Black people, whether you were middle class or not middle class. And white people benefited from that system, whether they were poor whites or rich whites and all that. And our approach was more around individuals. And this is where the DA makes a mistake. It individualizes the challenges that were systemic, that were not individualized.
Well, that's where we leave it. I thank you so much for your time, Professor Sipho Seepe. Really fascinating talking to you. And maybe that's the point. So Solly Malatsi of the DA saying race is not a proxy for disadvantage. Professor Sipho Seepe is saying race is a proxy for disadvantage. Just go and see what's happened in all things in South Africa. And Ashraf Garda says race is a proxy for disadvantage. That's why we have the level of inequality that we still continue to have 30 years into democracy, because there's a historical disadvantage and it affects certain colors more than anybody else. So there you are. Make of that, DA supporter, what you will.
Salam Media, keeping you company